There is no sponsorship intro with fancy background music in this episode because that didn't feel appropriate. This is an anonymous interview. You might recognize the person in this interview, but please honor their desire to remain anonymous, especially if you share this episode on social media. Social media is a public forum that is closely monitored, and while we enjoy free speech in the United States, some other countries put people in jail for their public comments. Their friends and relatives could also be affected. And jails in other countries make the jails in the United States look like country clubs. So please honor the anonymity of this interview. Today is Saturday, February 26th, 2022, and this is episode number 73, Working Remotely During a War. We're not saying any names, we're not saying any companies, but we're here to talk about what it's like working remotely during a war. I don't know how to start, but that's our very unpleasant topic. I know we have things like disaster planning for hurricanes and things like that, but maybe we start off with planning. What was it like having to plan for the scenario of a war?
Well, that is like having a war is really very hard to plan and very hard to believe, especially from historical perspective. Like if to speak about a war between Ukraine and Russia, there are a lot of people now in Ukraine which still do not believe that this war really happens. Of course, this number as of now is like ratio of such people is much smaller now as it used to be, let's say, 2 months ago. And historically speaking, why it was very hard to believe, because like my main message of Russian propaganda toward Ukrainians is we are brothers, or we are brotherly nation toward you. And so that's like, like if somebody claims I am your brother, like imagine you go on the street and somebody says like I'm your brother. Of course you can become suspect that he is hypocrite, yeah, but it's kind of hard to be suspective when politician says we are brotherly nation, we do not plan to invade you. So all of that is kind of hard to believe, yeah. And another problem is you don't know when it exactly happens. If to compare it with, let's say, hurricane, as of now we have, I would say, pretty reliable predictions or forecasts when hurricane happens. But even with hurricanes, we have reliable mechanisms. There are a lot of people which do not believe in hurricane. Let's say there is a word hurricane will happen. There are really big number of people which previous time I survived, why should I evacuate now? And the same about war. Like Ukraine had a war with Russia from 2014, and main assumption was that Ukraine will have war on the east again, and not the whole Ukraine will be attacked. Again,
how many scenarios were you considering from a planning perspective? There was one is nothing happens, two is an eastern side. But how did you break it down? What were the different possibilities?
I would tell you, all IT companies, they considered like highest chances east of Ukraine conflict, and kind of whole frontline invasion. Nobody believed it because logically it was very hard to believe that it's going to happen. And as one friend of mine used to tell, if Putin will make such invasion, like his friends or like cycle of his connections, they will give to him a pistol and he will tell him, shoot yourself 3 times. But in reality, this didn't happen. Like reality become much more gloomy. And like, for me, it was possible to leave Ukraine, and I was able to do so, like basically, like from developer perspective, developer has this Barbara Liskov principle, which says, if something looks like a duck, walks like a duck, then it is a duck. Yeah. And I was subscribed on few political analysts, and few political analysts pointed out that we have Russian army surrounded through couple of thousands of kilometers, and weapons which they have, those are attacking weapons. And they also pointed that we see banks of blood around the Ukrainian border as well. And it means it doesn't look like message of Russian propaganda was, we do training, we don't do we're not going to do real attack, we are going to do real training. But if you really do training, then why do you have blood banks near the border? So like, it sounds illogical. And quantity of those banks, it increased. Quantity of weapons increased. Quantity of people increased. So for me, it's like, and all like those 3 observers on which I was subscribed, they were saying, it looks crazy, it looks unbelievable, but there are chances that it will happen sooner than later. And
what was that principle? Say that principle again, that you, the developer?
Barbara Liskov principle.
Barbara Liskov principle. If it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it is a duck.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if it is a swan or a dog, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
As unbelievable as it might seem, you just had to come to grips with that's what's actually happening.
Yeah. And then from company owner perspective, I had another challenge. Yeah, like I monitor situation daily, I analyze what happens daily, but when I tell to my people idea that, guys, who wants to go, everybody says, I do not believe that it is going to happen. And it's and now now I understand why they have this assumption, because my people, they are concerned or concentrated on doing their job and doing the job in a good way. So like I had to make kind of strategic decision. Yeah, so like okay, this is what analysis tells me, and I analyzed it like every day for 2 hours. I spent on analysis what's going on. Like right now, I believe I need to to put some restraint on myself, not to like right now I believe I around 8 hours waste my time a bit too much now on analysis. But like my people didn't have chance to see this amount of analysis which I did, and that's why for them it was kind of what this guy tells me, like what kind of shocking information. Maybe he overwhelmed it. And again, similar to hurricane, yeah, like we had false alarms a few times, but anyway, I decided to leave Ukraine on 15th of February, and that was pretty smart.
And you were in Kyiv, right? You were in the capital.
Yeah, I was in the capital, and I left Kyiv, and in the week of attack, I even thought about like I will stay here to the end of the week, and maybe after that like in the end of the week, I will go back. I kind of booked my hotel up to Saturday, and then I prolonged one more day up to Sunday. But on Thursday night, my wife rings me and say, imagine I, like, my wife and I, we go to sleep pretty late because because of dealing with US customers. Yeah, it means for us that we are kind of owls, and for us, like it's usually, as I mentioned, we go to sleep late. And when my wife calls me at 6 a.m. or around this time, I don't exactly remember at which time she called me. For me, it was a sign that that is something like, there are cases, like one of the symptoms of depression is like if person is very much disappointed of what happens around him, one of the symptoms, and person just want to sleep. And this is not because they really sleepy or lazy. Person so much disappointed with reality that he wants to hide himself, and like somebody hide himself from reality, drinks or drugs, or let's say some other stuff. And another way where people sometimes may hide is kind of sleeping. And for me, it was kind of such a situation. Like my wife, like 6 a.m., probably my wife calls me. Maybe it is a mistake. No, like, she was persistent. Okay, it is not a mistake. And then like, okay, what's going on? Explosions. I woke up from explosions. So don't consider coming back. And for me, it was like, okay. And when I heard it, I come with only one of my colleagues, and day before it, we had conversation, and he said, I believe nothing will happen, nothing serious will happen. And I was, again, I mentioned why, because he didn't have such information as I had, and not that he is a bad guy, like, he's a very talented developer, very gifted developer, very committed and dedicated, but he concentrated on development. He didn't have chance to see. And also he, like, developers, not all of them, of course, but like, kind of stereotype, developer work with code. And I would say it's usually code doesn't lie. Like you have the same input, you always have the same output. Humans are not a code. Humans, like the same human in one day, on the same input, he can give you one output, another day can be totally another, just because, magnetic storm happens and he's crazy. And the day before that, that colleague say, like, I don't believe something terrible going to happen, and tell him, I would be very happy to be wrong, believe me, because I would be super happy to be wrong, because for me it was kind of terrible. But when my wife woke me up, I knocked to his room trying to wake him up, but he was sleeping very well. And only in 3 hours I was able to look. very, very disappointing news, but Kiev was bombarded, and for him it was like, oh, he was shocked. And
because even though you weren't there, you both have loved ones who are there. That's maybe even harder. You think it's even harder not being there or at that time?
The hardest part was not being, like, imagine you can sleep every day without problem. Like you turn on the light and you sleep whole night. But now, each time I go to bed, I have concern, where is my wife? And how is she sleeping? If she sleeps, does she sleep in the bed or she sleeps in bathroom? And as of now, it is necessary to sleep in bathroom because this is like the way how buildings are made in Ukraine. Like the safest place in case of bombarding is bathroom because it is kind of deepest part of the building, like as usual in Ukraine. In Israel, by the way, it's also the same. Again, like deepest part, like safe room, as usual, is also bathroom. So she sleeps in bathroom, and like I go to sleep in bed and like, God, I wish my wife sleeps in bathroom today, or in shelter. And that's again like kind of another sad part to feel that like you are inconvenience of hotel, but your wife and your father-in-law, mother-in-law inconvenience of shelter. And let's say they sleep in the bathroom. Question is, in case of siren, will they have enough strength to go to shelter? So basically every morning and during the night, like eyes open and like, I want to know how they are doing. But because of sirens and because of explosions, it's kind of a challenge to sleep. And I have question message to them in the night, like, how are you? Or to message them in the morning to make sure that they are that they are safe. And then during the day, like each time I get some pop-up Telegram, I subscribe in Telegram to groups, like news groups. And like for now we have TV channels, which post every new update in Telegram. So diversion group was in Kyiv, it posted in Telegram. Diversion group is in nearby area of Kyiv, running on the tanks. It is posted on Telegram. And like kind of concern. Let's say you are on the call with customer, and your phone rings you, and there is kind of habit like, okay, what's going on there? Maybe it is in region where my in-laws live, or maybe it is region where my wife lives, or maybe it is area where one of my employee lives. And like I can tell you a situation, like one of my people, he used to live in Obolon area, and that was area which Russia put their troops, like diversion groups. And when I read it, like okay, and I was discussing some business requirements with customer, like, sorry, give me please 5 minutes. And I messaged like, hey, such and such, tell me please, how are you? Like, yeah, I seen from the window those guys were running. Okay, what's your plan? Oh, I'm going to leave to safe area. And we're like, okay, thanks God. Please, once you reach to that safe area, let me know. And they're like in 2 hours, during 2 long hours, this guy messaged me like, hey, I'm fine. So he mentions like, I'm fine. Okay, that's good.
That's crazy. So you're not only running a business, working with the Acumatica product, but you're managing's not a great word for it, but you're constantly aware of both individuals' situations and the broader situation, whatever you can get your hands on. And like you said, 2 hours a day of just keeping tabs on what's going on and then working on top of that. And, when most people think about working remotely, the image you have associated with that is on the beach or, some kind of pleasant setting, the flexibility of working remotely. But here you are working remotely during a war. And, how does that make you feel? Does working remotely feel like you're glad to be able to do that and carry on, and maybe gives you some dose of sanity? Or is it like, oh, this is just one more thing I have to be doing right now because I can, because if I worked at a factory, I just wouldn't be able to go into work and I wouldn't be able to work. But because I can work remotely, I am obligated to carry that on. Do you feel like that's more of a blessing or more of a curse?
No, I would say it is. I would call it blessing, honestly speaking. Like remote work is like there are a lot of research which kind of proves that remote work is not efficient. There are smaller amount of researchers which prove totally the opposite. Yeah. But remote work allows people to show who they really are. Like if, let's say, somebody says, I'm self-disciplined person, remote work allows them to show to everybody is they are really self-disciplined or not. And what kind of, I noticed, like that those who were, like those people who were good performers, like on remote work in peaceful time, they still performing well in wartime. The only difference is how they work. Like it's usually when people work, let's say from like we have a flexible schedule. Like they start, like somebody start at 9 and finishes at 6. Somebody starts at 12 and finishes at 9, or like like this, yeah. But everybody is like more or less flexible when they start, when they finish. We have some kind of sync up calls every day, and those who are kind of self-disciplined, even in time of the war, they perform well. Like they do their job. The only difference is like sometimes I'm getting email. I hear siren. I need to go to shelter. Once it will finish, I'll come back. And my impression was, if I heard sound of siren via YouTube, I didn't like it. It sounds pretty stressful. Yeah. But like I will take my daughter, go to shelter. After shelter, we'll continue. And yeah, after like 2 hours, he says, "Okay, sirens, shut it up. I will continue." And when in the end of the day, developer says like, "Here, I deliver package to our QA," and the QA says it is tested, and when QA say it works fine, for me it's like I would say like definitely Ukrainian army as of now, it makes miracles in fighting with Russia. That is then more than the obvious. But when I see how like business analysts refine requirements via email because they sometimes have issues with connecting with customers, and when developers do their job, like as of now we have only one developer who is in Kharkiv, and Russia behaves very badly toward Kharkiv. I mean, like let's say against Kyiv or Zhytomyr or Rivne, Russia as of yet it bombards mostly military objects. In Zhytomyr, Russia bombards not only like far from only military objects, I would say. And like there is only one developer who cannot do his work. Others just like they say like, sorry, I need to make a small break. And I can like, for me it's kind of when I look on this, it's kind of like I take it personally, and I take it on kind of commitment and kind of heroism which people show, because like they care about my business, they care about my customers, and that's very encouraging for me. and I would say touching my heart.
I would completely agree. Heroic is a good word for it. You might not be picking up a rifle on the front line fighting, but still, in a sense, just to carry on some sense of normalcy with your job, you are fighting. And that's a very interesting point, a very simple point, but you're in a sense, a good worker in peacetime. You're a good worker in wartime. And do you feel like that gives the people you're working with some sense of normalcy or some sense of something that I can carry on and still be proud of and still do a good job at, even though everything else around is so uncertain right now?
That's a very good question. I didn't thought about it. Like sometimes I
I think
believe
it's kind of the blessing and the curse side, right? I mean, even from someone who's working for you, just doing development on Acumatica, you feel like they have a similar feeling that I've got, it's more of a blessing that I have something constant that I can be doing.
Yeah, I would say yeah. And especially like because of war, we have a kind of tough employment situation. Yeah, because like for us, we are kind of happy to have customers outside of war zone from US, and for us, it's not a big deal, and especially taking into account time zone difference, we don't have problem with that we will get paid. So that definitely gives some kind of opportunity for people to make sure that we will be able to work and we will be able to help our relatives to get paid, and we will be able to take care of our friends, family members. But again, this is another part. It reminds me a story about one guy who found some kind of charm, and according to the charm, whatever he wants for himself, he can use it. But once he use for anyone else of the charm, he will lose it completely. And that parable parable ends with situation. He visited his mother. His mother is sick. She needs some help, for medical treatment or whatever. He and that hero of that parable, he has dilemma. He has everything, gold, luxury, and once he will give breadcrumb to his mother, he will lose all of his possessions. And that hero, he makes a decision not to give to his mother, and then pain of conscience which he has afterwards. And that is another situation of myself and my people. I have friends who are not IT people, who are not developers. I used to meet with them, meet people as well. They, let's say, go with them fishing or something. And now those people are losing their jobs. So that's their friends, their colleagues, and our salaries are not as huge. We do not earn as much to make sure that we will have enough for everybody. So that's another concern, which again kind of touches heart or can cause concerns. You have enough for yourself, but where is this trade-off when you give to others and when you live for yourself? Where is this edge to put?
Yeah, you're taking care of yourself, and by doing that, you're able to take care of others. But there's got to always be that question: could I do more for others? Yeah, that's and in a situation where so many people really need the help.
Yeah. And those people, those are good people because you know them for ages. You know that they're capable of helping themselves in peaceful time. But now, those people have no job. And not because they are lazy, or they are stubborn, or they are stupid. But just because his workplace, was destroyed. And like there is one thing when your workplace was like when workplace of one person was destroyed, but when workplace is destroyed, and on TV you hear that your workplace is destroyed because some country decided to make denazification of your country, it kind of makes go nuts. And a lot of people become very furious about the situation. No, I will tell you an interesting fact. Like one of the messages of Russian propaganda is that Russia is going to do denazification of Ukraine because Ukraine behave as Nazi Germany. And what makes this situation very absurd? Like previous president of Ukraine, he has Hebrew origin, like 50% Hebrew or 25% Hebrew. Current president of Ukraine as well have Hebrew origin. And to say that Hebrew is Nazi, this is something that cannot be put in the head or understood, whatever.
And even if your workplace is not destroyed, you might not be able to get there, right? I mean, the roads, the checkpoints, you might not be able to get there. And so I guess that is a real blessing that you do have some work that you can do remotely, even though it adds another thing to your plate. It sounds like it's hard to sleep right now anyways. And wow.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like that's definitely a blessing. But like you mentioned another part. Like let's say you are, maybe you've seen this on the news, maybe not. But a very heartbreaking situation on train station. We have cases when husband escort his wife and kids to train, make goodbye kiss, and a lot of husbands then go to war, and wife goes either to the west of Ukraine or outside of Ukraine as refugees. That's what we have. And we have, like in Kyiv, we have kind of stream, like stream goes and then stream splits. Kiss goodbye, somebody on the train, somebody goes out. And that's very, very heartbreaking picture.
I haven't seen that. Is that like, these are civilians, like not even necessarily, I guess everyone right now is able to quote, join the military. I mean, is your impression that situation is you take your family to the train station, you're not even necessarily in the military, but you say goodbye, they get on the train, and then the husband goes and gets a rifle and they enter the military in a sense?
Yeah, that happens pretty often. Like as of now, depending from part of Ukraine, but as of now we have, I would say, of course, I cannot tell exact statistics, but that's kind of surprising that length of line for bread is smaller than length of line for rifles.
Say that again.
Let's say line for buying bread is 10 people. In that case, line for getting rifles will be 40 people.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
It shows that, for me, it shows how furious Ukrainians are now because of that situation. They don't want it so much as they want to protect their territory. And for me, it's kind of like another surprise, and I'm pretty surprised by that, amount of efforts and amount of fury and amount of angerness. That's kind of incredible quantity.
I've never been to Ukraine, but I have been to Poland. And as a spoiled American, I was very impressed with the just the work ethic of the people in the area I visited. You know, like one thing that I would notice in Poland is that you'd have houses that are under construction. And at least at the time, you know, this was late 90s that I was there. They didn't have a big credit system. So you wouldn't borrow money to build a house. You would build it with cash. So when you had enough money for the foundation, you would pour the foundation. Then when you had enough money for the next step, you do the next step. And so you'd see these houses that were in various stages of being built, but they didn't look like construction sites necessarily. And that really made an impression on me of, you know, just hardworking people was my impression. Is that your impression of Ukrainian people just in general before a war even starts?
I would say, yeah. Ukrainian, I would say they are quite hardworking. There are a lot of people who overtime. I would say, you know, I have one, I can mention one developer. He says, I cannot sleep if I have unresolved issue. And sometimes we have situation. By the way, that developer, luckily, he moved out of Ukraine as well. For me, it was also like, you know, he has wife, he has 3 daughters. And when he tried to cross the border, first border, like in one checkpoint on the border, he was pushed back, but he go to another, and he was able to squeeze out of Ukraine. I was very happy. But like with that developer, I have sometimes situation like I help him in resolving like technical problem. I cannot make a breakthrough, but like I need to jump, let's say, organize a call or something. Like I leave in him, and while I on the call, he says, "Okay, goodbye. I'm going to sleep." And then in 2 hours, he like, "I found the resolution." Like, you're supposed to sleep already for 2 hours, and now you type that you found the resolution. Like I cannot sleep if something like a worm pushes me to look for solution. That's
So you can almost see that kind of resolve going on right now with Ukrainian people. And to your point
Yeah.
earlier, the way you are in peacetime is the way you are in wartime. You are who you are. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, basically, war just allows you to. It's a bit easier to see who you really are. It's kind of the same as if somebody gets a lot of money by whatever reason, whatever meaning, yeah, it's kind of a power, and there are those who get it and they are spoiled, and there are very small amount of people who get and they are not spoiled. But in reality, it just shows who you really are, and it allows to show quickly what kind of personality. Right? It's kind of temptation by freedom, and temptation by war, basically absolutely the same. It kind of allows to see what kind of person you are, what are your values, how much you're concerned about those values, and how committed to your values you are as well.
What's your hope for right now? Like maybe not hope is the wrong word. What's your planning right now? You know, you had kind of plans a month ago or whenever it was when you're planning for what happens in different scenarios. You know, what's your current thinking on, you know, how do you keep going every day? How do you, is it day to day, or do you have longer term plans for, you know, what might happen and how you handle it?
As of now, our plan is like when we seen the situation, me and my partner, we started to hire people outside of Ukraine, and we hired few developers outside of Ukraine, and we have target. as of now, we have target not to fire anybody inside of Ukraine, even if no one in Ukraine will be able to do anything, because like if situation will become much tougher. Like as of now, they able to work, but with some interruptions. But we hired few people in other countries. They help us tremendously for cases when we need commitment. Yeah. Also, we like some of our people, like because we are distributed team on the different parts of Ukraine, majority of our people, they moved to safe area. And when I say safe area, it's like, for example, one of our developers, he lives in area where population is around 1,000 people. And it is kind of like it's basically village on the mountain, and he lives there. That village has no, or like close to zero strategic value. It doesn't have any military base. It has only station transmitter of mobile connection. That's it. But he stays there and he works there. And other developers, like majority of our people, they cannot leave Ukraine because of this. I forget how like military legislation does not allow to leave Ukraine if there is a war, basically.
The martial law.
Yeah, martial law.
That you're supposed to stay to fight.
Yeah. So nobody can leave Ukraine, but those who don't want to fight, they just go to some quiet areas and they continue doing their work. And there are those who cannot go. Reason why they cannot go, like for example, there is one guy, his wife is a nurse and he cannot leave her with daughter. And another problem, like another guy, he is in area which is kind of under severe attack, and for him it will be a suicide to go anywhere. So basically he kind of sits at home and only time from the time very like squeezing or sneezing to buy something and gets back.
And is he still able to connect to the internet to do things?
As of now, not. Like he is not able. But that, like, he has really tough situation. Like he's in the city which is kind of crazy. Like it's very strategic city. It is 30 kilometers from Russia, and that city used to produce tanks. And as of now, it still produces. So for Russia to capture that city is kind of, if soldiers capture that city, like one of the reasoning behind capturing that particular city is that city, that's a pretty big city, 3 million people. If to capture that city, then and overthrow government there, potentially other cities will follow example and just give up or capitulate. So that's why that city, and like that guy, he is located kind of few kilometers from military base. So very very bad location from war standpoint.
How has internet connections been in other areas? Is it up and down, or is it somewhat reliable?
It depends. As usual, it is reliable, but it's not always like that. But as usually, like as of now, I just can express my admiration to internet, basically to internet providers and to mobile companies. It was a time when we had in Ukraine around 5 competitive mobile companies. Right now, if I'm correct, there are only 2. But for me, it seems that they really compete with each other for quality. So for now, we have kind of good internet connection, and some people they can use 2 or sorry, like we have 3 companies. I remember So basically, somebody have a SIM card of 3 different companies, and if internet from one company doesn't work, he switched to another. If second doesn't work, he switched to third. And quite often the first starts work if third doesn't work. So that's like, again, if you really concentrated, like I need to get this job done and I need internet for that, you will, like, when one guy shared, like, look, this is what I did. They have 3 SIM cards, 1 internet, 2 internet, 3 internet.
Just try the one that works. Yeah, that makes sense. But it sounds like, and you're still running a business with people in Ukraine, and the connection must be good enough, to carry on. I guess maybe you have an advantage being in mostly development there, and that a lot of development takes place locally in local environments. You just have to sync up to push out a final package, to between people, but a lot of it is heads down local work, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and one more change which we have as of now is like we have daily stand up and daily status. Daily stand up, like before the war, it was like during today I'm going to work on task this, task that. In the end of the day, like I'm successful with this, with that, and so on. As of now, I'm going to work with this. I'm alive. My family are alive. Yesterday was silence. I slept well. In the end of the day, I did this. I was in the shelter. I'm alive. My family alive. Everything is good. And this statement, like sometimes if I ask how I'm doing, sometimes I say like I'm alive, and it's kind of sarcastic. Like I'm alive, it means like that I'm exhausted, but I'm good. As of now, this is very positive message. As of now, if developer says I'm alive, like thanks God, he is alive, and then
wow.
So like this statement from joke, it started to get really meaning.
Wow.
Yeah. But that is the dilemma which everybody have as of now, like to be inconvenience or to be not inconvenience, or sacrifice, like if you have a good job, it's usually you have family life, you have kids and so on. Sacrifice it or not sacrifice? What should be the sacrifice? Those internal conflicts, they influence work, for sure.
It sounds like no matter which option you choose, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Well, thank you I for taking the time. We're talking about this from a non-political angle. This is outside kind of the normal podcast episode topic here, but thank you for taking the time to tell your story and what's going on there, and kind of describing some of those details that people like myself just have no idea of what that must be like. And my heart really goes out to you and to your family, to your team, and to your people there in Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. I hope this will help others to better understand what's going on here.